Hello interwebs, I hope you're all doing well because I am here to review the latest episode of Halo, the series, Season 1, Episode 4, Homecoming. And yes, before you ask, it does look very fancy over here. I'm actually filming a video here for my other channel that should actually be going up the same day that this is going up. So check it out, it'll be up here, it's about NFTs, it'll be a fun time is the wrong word, but anyways, regardless, go watch that video. I'm putting a lot of work and effort into it, but as you can kind of see by the set that I'm on, and I just figured, why not shoot the review on the set? Why not? Be a little fun, spiffy it up a little bit, because Jessie likes to be all spiffy. Anyways, let's actually review the episode of Halo. Also, I just realized that my mic probably sounded a little bit weird up until right now because it was actually pointing over there. So if the audio sounds better now, that's why. Anyways, getting to the actual episode, this was the best episode of the series to my mind so far, mostly because it was a much slower paced episode that took its time to actually lay a lot of the groundwork that I wish this show had done earlier on to earn the more faster pace that it had earlier in the show. In all honesty, I feel like if a lot of the world building that had happened in this episode had come a little bit sooner, I think a lot of the initial reception to the series would have actually been a lot more positive. That's not to say that this episode is somehow a great work of art or like completely changes the direction of the series by any means, more just that I think a lot of the foundational work that is starting to be shown and done within this episode is starting to get me to invest a little bit more into the story that I haven't really been feeling up until right now, and I'm greatly appreciating it. On the whole, I still think this show is decent but not great, but I am starting to get more and more invested in its world and its characters that this episode showed me. And I think getting into some of the specifics and the main way that that is being done is through the character of Kai, the sort of Spartan soldier who also takes out her emotion chip because she saw John do it. This storyline, I think, was easily my favorite of the entire episode, mostly because the actor who plays Kai, she is fan-freaking-tastic. I love her, and I just loved, like, the slightly off-putting, slightly creepy vibe, like, her eyes are just slightly open a little bit too much and, like, starey, and I think that that's actually part of the actor's performance, that she's trying to be just a little off-human, but you start to see that she's finding her humanity in a lot of different ways, and I like how a lot of the scenes that she's brought into emphasize her distinct difference from the other two Spartans. The other two Spartans are standing there ramrod straight, like just talking forward. And yeah, they'll make quips and little jokes here and there, but they are basically just robots. And Kai, in comparison, is actually moving around, getting interested, having conversations, like very dynamic, picking up the Needler and talking about it, which was cool to see the Needler in live action. The Easter egg fan in me was very, very pleased with that. But I liked that distinction, that juxtaposition, and I really feel like if John had been that in maybe the first few episodes, if we had seen him as this robot and then getting the juxtaposition of his actions after the fact, I would have invested more in his character a little bit more, and it would have allowed us to construct his character before we deconstructed him right within the first episode. So I'm liking that we're starting to get some more of that distinction in this episode that should have been done actually for John earlier. I also like Kai's interactions with Miranda Keyes in this episode as well, because it started to play upon some of the choices that this series was making that differentiate it from the choices in the video game. Namely, what we learned last week in last episode, that Miranda is actually the daughter of Halsey in this universe. And I liked their bonding started to show that they were both kind of victims of Halsey in different ways. And I like the final speech that Miranda gives at the end of the episode, that Halsey just sees people as too emotional and she just things to be fixed, like glitches. And you could tell that Miranda was speaking from her own experience because she's her mother, but also how that relates to the experience of the Spartans and how they were sort of like Halsey trying to impose her will upon this universe and upon these people, I should say. So I liked that bonding and connection between the two characters. I actually thought that was really, really smart. And one of the cooler, like, intriguing sequences and characterizations that the show's done so far. So everything to do with Kai and an offshoot of Miranda's storyline was great too, but I also really liked that we started to get little hints of Halo here. That Kai actually showing interest in the Needler and like saying words got Miranda interested in learning more of Sangheili language, and that she was able to decipher the words Sacred Ring or Halo, hinting at obviously what we all as video game fans know is coming, the big Halo, which I'm so pumped for. But again, this sequence kind of begs the question though of who is this story for? Because again, all fans of Halo know what Halo is, and I maybe I'm wrong, but I even feel like Halo is ubiquitous enough within culture that most people that would be interested in watching this show probably would also already know vaguely that what Halo is. That it is, spoilers, giant super weapon that kills all life in the galaxy. That's like a fairly well-known thing within the Halo universe. And so playing up this big mystery of like, we're gonna see the Halo, I'm just sort of wondering like, who is this for? That I'm just wondering like who they think their audience is. I don't know, maybe that's difficult, because you kind of have to play the story as it's told. You can't like have them know the Halo ring. But I guess I'm just sort of sitting here like not all that in awe of the, ooh, look, it's Halo, and what's the mystery behind it? And so it kind of falls flat for me. And I guess that's more just the difficult place this adaptation is in, because I guess there's no ultimately perfect way to have done it, but it's just difficult because I'm not really super pumped about the mystery, because I kind of already know the mystery that it's building towards. And I say that not just as a big Halo fan, but I think like generally it's ubiquitous enough within culture that I feel like most people would know. So it's not really a fault of the show, I guess, but it's just sort of the thing that they have to deal with. This brings us, though, to the other two storylines of the episode that I was less enamored with, but they were still generally better than they have been the past few episodes. Namely, first, let's go with Sauron and Quan. They go back to Madrigal, and I liked a little bit of Quan sort of like learning more about what the situation is here, that all of her father's generals sort of betrayed him, and going to his funeral and things like that, and able to figure out. I like that she was kind of smart in that realm, that she was kind of aware of how the game of politics worked on this planet, and that people are looking for her. And I liked her sort of relationship building with Sauron as well. I thought that was decently strong. It was nothing particularly revelatory or new in any level, but I thought it was like, okay, this is good. It didn't really stick out at me as anything super special, but moving along their plot in a nicely formed way. It does interest me, though, that she's forming more of an attachment to Sauron than she ever did to Master Chief. So we'll see how that eventually goes on, because I'm curious if Quan's ever going to meet up with Master Chief and where this storyline is ultimately headed in the grand scheme of things. But one negative that I do have for this storyline is Gorman's character, the sort of leader of the revolution. I love Gorman, one of my favorite actors. I feel like he is sort of missed and forgotten treasure among many, many actors. I love him in a lot of the stuff that he does, and he plays an evil dictator, fascist asshole very, very well a lot of the time. Like, look at his work in The Expanse for good examples of that. But the character is just so on the nose here. Like, he's literally walking around in like the fascist, like Nazi, like outfits. He even says at one point, I think, like, heavy lies the crown. And then he's like smoking a cigar in a pool of like opulence. And I'm like, oh, okay, they are just laying it on thick with this dude. It's not even really subtle. And Gorman brings a little bit more to it because it's Gorman. But I really feel like the character is just like so unnuanced and so like over the top that I was just kind of like, oh my God, the only thing, if anyone but Gorman was playing this character, I would probably be much more frustrated. So I was a bit disappointed in that character coming in here. And I'm curious to see where they're going with the storyline overall. We get the little hints of these mysterious mages that she has to now go and seek out with Gorman's forces after her, and she's going to go out with Sauron to find them, and it'll probably lead into the greater mystery of the Halo rings, because there's something that, you know, she's destined to do. Ultimately, curious to see what that ultimately leads towards, because I really have no idea. So we'll see how that continues to build. The other thing that I really liked here, though, was getting to see John return to his home. And I liked the flashbacks and things that we saw of his life, showing that he now no longer trusts Halsey. The opening scene of the episode, too, which was a flashback to him as a kid, shows how Halsey was very much gaslighting him as a kid and, like, eliminated his memories and sort of told him lies in order to get him to cooperate. I thought that was a good introduction and setup for what we eventually got down the road, the revelation that John is starting to realize that Halsey did kidnap him and did sort of manipulate him into joining this program against his wishes. I thought all of that was particularly interesting and well done. I also liked seeing John be deconstructed a little bit more in these sequences in how he's displayed. Like, for example, when they first arrive at the house, John says, oh, I had a line of sight here, like using words, like militaristic words to describe the situation, showing that he still has that military background. But as the episode went more and more on, he got a little bit more loosened and opened as his memory sort of came back to him. And he became a little bit less militaristic and more human. And so I thought all of that was really, really well done. I worry about too chosen one-ifying John, but I did like the explanation that he has these special abilities because he accidentally found one of the artifacts earlier when he was a little kid, which does less to chosen one-ify him and just makes it sort of an accident. And I kind of really like that, though it's still like coincidental that he had the artifact, and also became the leader of the Spartans, but what are you going to do? I thought that was particularly decently well done. Trying to think if there's anything else that I want to talk. Oh, one last thing that I did want to mention before I sort of round out this review. And again, I'm generally positive on it, but one thing that I'm still frustrated by is the way the Covenant are being used here. Like, Halsey at one point says, like, oh, I want to find this greater power. I want to know what these aliens that made these artifacts are. And she clearly knows that they are a greater power than the Covenant. But I would also think there would be a little bit of reticence and xenophobia, maybe not necessarily on her part, but people around her, to, like, learning more about these artifacts because of their dealings with the Covenant, which are a very angry, aggressive alien race. And those are the first aliens that humanity got to know. And so I think there'd be a little more like, maybe we don't want to know the aliens that are even more powerful than the Covenant. I don't know. It doesn't seem like a great idea. That is just xenophobia, but I think it would, I wish we got to see a little bit more pushback based on, like, awareness of the Covenant. And I'm still very confused about what the Covenant's relationship to humanity is. Are they, like, killing humanity? Are they attacking them? Are they in full-out war mode? Or is it just like the Outer Colonies? The show has not made that entirely clear, and it's a bit disappointing and frustrating week to week. And so I just wish that the Covenant got a little bit more solidifying in terms of where they fit within the world building of the show. So that's a little negative. It's not a big knock on this episode because the Covenant don't appear here, but it's just something that continually bugs me as we go through. But on the whole, like I said, this was a vast improvement over the past few other episodes, and I've been even decently okay with the past few episodes, so I think we're on a good upward trajectory. It's still by no means great, but there are signs of really strong and good storytelling throughout here, so all in all, another good episode. But I'd love to hear all of your thoughts down in the comments below, so I don't know where that came from. I'm sorry, I'm doing voices. I've been filming all day, so I appreciate you handling me. Anyways, comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode. Don't forget to subscribe. I also have a main channel where the video that I also recorded earlier today will be going up hopefully soon, if not up already by the time you watch this. And Patreon helps pay the bills. But beyond all of that, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you, as always, my friends, live long and prosper.